What's up, folks? We are live, and I got here today as a guest with me, my brother Isa Ali. And today, our discussion is going to be about the grace of men. Now, we did this kind of like on the fly in terms of deciding that we were going to discuss this, but there's a lot of misconceptions about the value of man, where we hold man at in whatever esteem, and you know, how we respect authority overall. So without further ado, I'm gonna let my man Issa introduce himself to you guys, and then we're gonna have a discussion amongst two brothers and the rest of the audience and in public about the grace of man. So talk to me, Issa. How you feeling today, brother?
Peace, man. I hope everything is well. I am well. Shout out to anybody that's watching. Yeah, man, I'm doing amazing, man. I'm just real excited to dive into this content, you know what I'm saying, and open up some eyes and shed some light in dark places, bro. That's all.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you making yourself available. So we originally got here from the post that I had made about it is about the grace of men. It's the post originally was stating something to the effect of, if until you can intrinsically protect someone or know that, then you need to get back in the kitchen because you don't understand what a man is already calculating every day, about
Absolutely.
about his life, about the people that he's responsible for. And what I was stating in that is that the women that might not understand that is coming from the fact that most women don't have anybody that they're responsible for until they have children.
Hmm.
That was like the source of it. Yeah. So like when I say get back in the kitchen, that's what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Like we got different business, we got different concerns,
Right.
and we don't try to step on anybody else's toes. So you and I had a little bit of a conversation about that because it hit the right notes and it made sense. So talk to me about what does the grace of men look like for you in your life?
For me, the grace of men, one of the main things I want to hit on and touch on is going to be a very, very sensitive subject. But the grace of men involves and is directly correlated to a man's relationship with his mother.
Okay. Okay.
And when the mother son dynamic is out of whack, it breeds what we see in today's society, these men walking around as shells of men, but they have the internal compass and emotional compass of a female. So now, depending on the caliber of that female, that young boy that's being raised by that female, once he becomes a man, when he's navigating his emotional space as a man, he's really going to be operating with the emotional integrity of his mother subconsciously. And what mothers don't understand is when you raise boys like this and they're emotionally codependent on you, and the woman is emotionally codependent on the son, what happens is a son and his need for his mother's affirmation and love will not ever say anything bad about his mother, regardless to whatever he's seen his mother doing growing up. And we all know, I've been the dude that's slid through women's cribs in the middle of the night. You understand? And, you know, doing grown up things. And, these young sons might wake up, go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and hear that. You understand? And the mental and psychological effects that has on the young son, because he's by default been set up as a surrogate husband for the mother. He takes care of certain household responsibilities for the mom. He's her companion. He's her emotional confidant. He encourages her on bad days. So when there's no man in the picture, boyfriend, husband, they become emotionally codependent on each other. And now it's a different type of relationship. So we have movies like Baby Boy, right? Where
Yep.
Melvin had to check Jody and let Jody know, yeah, see, your problem is you think your mama is your woman. No, that's my woman. You understand?
Yeah.
Now we watch movies like this, and they really was breaking down.
Uh-oh, we got a freeze, man. You was cooking. Let's see. So if you can still hear me, I know you're probably having a connection, and I'll bring you right back to the baby boy conversation. But one of the things that we discussed also um, was the fact that you had a two-parent home, and then you had a unique childhood, and you could speak from a place that a lot of men would probably get super sensitive about when it pertains to men being raised by women. And we've seen how um, that conversation has gone or progressed, especially in my content space over time. So I would love to see when, like I would love for you to lead the conversation from the aspect of a man that's been raised by a woman from that aspect too, because eventually we're going to have a discussion that involves that specific group of men that have that particular childhood experience, because you all men are not the same. I don't think anybody's oblivious to that, but at some point we have to be honest about who can have the conversation and who can't. Now there's always going to be a group of people that can recognize the behavior. All of us really have to recognize the behavior for our own safety, for our own compatibility sakes, for the necessity of making the best informed decision. You can't do everything with everybody, no matter if you want to or not, because we got plenty of incidents that show what the outcome looks like if you put to the side your safety and you give grace to the wrong men. And I think a lot of the times that's what we see. Judgments based off of decision making, families. A lot of the wrong men have had access to the wrong women, but in particular, the conversation centered around from women saying that men need to exercise a different type of control and discernment is basically telling you, the men that's listening, that the women aren't capable, or they have no will to protect themselves. So they're telling you to protect you because they can't protect you. That's why people that blame you can't protect you, like, at all. Because if they could protect you, they will tell you why you should or shouldn't do something. They don't just let you fall into a trap and then blame you for going into the trap and say, you didn't tell me not to take you out of there. No. The grace of men has to be given, because you're not going to get the grace that you're going to get from women is about what they benefit from. All right, brother. So, man, you was cooking.
Check.
I don't know what happened. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I got you, man.
Hold on, bro. Let me make sure
okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, let me know when you get situated.
I can't hear you.
Test. Can you hear me now? I got you. Check your Bluetooth. Let me take you backstage. So the hang on. I can hear you. Can everybody hear him? Yeah. Everybody can hear you, I think. So let me see. Let's see. Go ahead and talk. Go ahead and go. Go.
I can't hear you.
Go.
Can you hear me though?
I can hear you good.
Okay.
I can hear you.
All right. So, but what I was saying before we got cut is how a young boy's relationship with his mother sets his emotional compass for the rest of his life as it pertains to his relationships with women. And when young boys are emotionally codependent on their mothers, and that relationship dynamic is not intact and there's no masculinity present, he develops and by default operates with the emotional compass of a woman. So where that goes into to the grace of men. The grace of men is most often you see young boys that play sports, they in the NFL or whatever. First thing they do when they score the touchdown, hey mom. When they win the championship, hey mom. First thing they say is, and this is the grace of men, once I sign my deal and get my check, the first thing they're going to do is buy their mother a house. Okay. You don't never hear them say, I'm about to buy my dad a house. So the grace of men shows up in the simple fact that any young son that loves his mother, anytime he achieves any type of success, if she was a woman of integrity, by default, he's going to cover his mother. And that's the definition and the epitome of the grace of men. You see what I'm saying? Another thing, men and young boys tend to cover their mother's infidelities when they come up in a single parent home. They've watched their mothers behave promiscuously in front of them. Some of them have watched multiple men in and out of their house. Sometimes it was maybe just even one or two. However, regardless to whatever is going on and whatever that young boy sees, that's going to set his emotional compass of how he sees and how he views women. So what happens is, like I was describing with Jody in the movie Baby Boy, like Melvin had to check Jody and help him understand, like, nah, man, the way you behaving like your mother is your woman, and your mother ain't your woman. That's my woman. You her son. But Jody for years harbored resentment because he felt like his mother kicking his brother out is the reason why his brother got killed. Now, he would have never said that to his mom unless Melvin applied that pressure, put him in a chokehold. He was crying in the living room, and he said, "You gonna kick me out just like you did my brother, and then I'm gonna end up dead." Which is, in that movie, it was genius because they're showing you the emotional instability. They're showing you manipulation. He tried to gaslight her and all of these types of things, which lets you know, where did he develop that behavior from? If he was primarily raised by his mother, right, this is where he developed those characteristics and those qualities. And that's where that narcissism, gaslighting, emotional manipulation. I don't really know too many men that emotionally manipulate women. What I see is men speak very fluently and men speak very direct, especially a masculine man. And then what would appear to be, or what they can only title as manipulation or control as a woman, is really just discipline and sound wisdom.
Okay, I got a question for you on the screen. Check that out. What should women know about men who have
Are you
been
there?
raised? Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I want you to look at the bottom of the screen.
I still can't hear you.
Bottom of the
Okay, hold
screen.
on. What should women know about men who have been raised by women? Okay. Women need to know that men who are raised by women, if they haven't had a masculine influence, basically you're in a relationship with another woman. And a lot of women that are married have a tendency to emasculate their men. So if you have a man that was raised by a single mom and he was of service to his mother, depending on whether he resented his mother for what he had to do for her, or whether that relationship was healthy where they looked out for each other and she nourished him to grow and let him know that one day he's going to be a husband and all of these types of things, then he might have a chance of being healthy in a relationship with another woman. But other than that, we know the spirit of competitiveness when it comes to women and attention and love. If the mother has a regular emotional attachment to the son, she will become jealous of any woman that attempts to love her son. And so now he's in a loyalty conundrum because he don't know whether to be loyal to the mom, his mother, or be loyal to his wife. If he chooses either one of them, he could lose the other. And this is, again, the grace of men. Most men stretch themselves emotionally thin trying to cater to the emotional needs of multiple women. So a lot of women say, oh, I don't want no man that got multiple women. Well, if he has daughters and he has a mother, I'm here to announce to you ladies, like, most of the dudes that was raised with by single mothers, you're already dealing with a man that has multiple women, whether it's his mother, his aunties, and if he was any type of dude, he's been made responsible for most of the women in his life, especially if he has sisters. He's the protector, he's all of that. So by the time he got to you, he's been emotionally spread thin ever since he was probably a teenager and had to take on responsibilities and chores that the average young boy with a father would never have to do, because fathers emotionally shield the sons and the daughters from the reckless emotions of the mother. It's the father's job to stabilize, anchor, and balance his wife, and he shields the children from the emotional wows of the woman. And in a lot of cases, the woman shields the children from how us as men have a tendency to be gruff, like, whoa, and we come off very stern. The woman, when she's serving in her proper role and in her proper place, has the ability to balance that man, just like we can balance them as a woman.
You cooking. Hold up.
Okay, I got you. Let me see what we got here. When did you realize that your mother's psychological impact was unhelpful to your life? Being married twice and divorced twice, it took me a bunch of times to bump my head with women. I got 7 kids by 5 different women. So my desire for commitment was there. My desire to be a husband, provider, protector, and legacy builder has always been there, because I grew up with uncles and my parents were married, and I had my father for a significant portion of my life. So what happens is, when you're dealing with a woman who has been heartbroken, right? Like my mother's experienced a lot of trauma once her divorce was final. My grandfather died, which was her father. So my mother was dealing with a range of different emotions during that time. And that time was around the time I was probably like 11, 12, 13. So my early teenage years. So I've often told people, and I tell people all the time, I don't talk to people who got beef with their parents, because if you don't have the emotional intelligence to understand the best times of your life and the worst times of your life that you can remember, those times were when your parents were in their mid 20s and early 30s. So when I look at myself and I think about the decisions that I was making in my mid 20s and early 30s, I was still out here trying to figure it out. But in my life, I realized those were the best times of my life when I was a child. I'm a 70s baby. So to offset whatever psychological damage that would have happened, the flip side of that, where you balance it out, is understanding and realizing my parents were kids when they was trying to raise us, and they were making the normal decisions and the mistakes that the kids at their age were making. The only difference was, coming through the 70s, our parents had a different level of work ethic, a different level of respect for their parents, a different level of discipline. They had respect, number one. Like, women respected men and men respected women. So by default, we got pieces of that, even though when things fell apart, it caused both of my parents to become emotionally unavailable. And in a lot of cases, it caused a lot of emotional dysfunction. So I would say the biggest thing that I grabbed from being raised by my mother was, if you don't know how to stabilize your own emotions, how detrimental that can be in your decision making, and how those decisions can affect your life long term. And that's what helped me put together the pieces of the puzzle to understand where children need their mothers and their fathers. And it also taught me to vet women properly. Don't vet women from a woman's perspective. It's very dangerous for a man to pick a woman based off of the ideology and the thinking and the emotional compass of a woman. Men have no business trying to be romantic, because we're not from Rome. All right. Rome and the Roman Catholic churches who set up this system that we're functioning in right now. So anything that got the letters ROM in front of it, romantic, and all of these type of things, like this is really not a part of our culture. So we're really not responsible for romancing a woman. What we're responsible for is protection, provision, and emotional stability. We're the anchors of the family. When everybody else is going crazy, we as men are supposed to balance the whole situation. But if you got the kids are emotional and the woman is emotional, and then you got an emotionally unstable man, that's what breeds chaos. And to me, that's why there are so many single parent homes at this state in America, because you got a man fully functioning as a man with a penis and testicles, muscles, but his thought process, he's picking his wife, he's making his decisions from the mental capacity of a woman. And depending on the caliber of the mother, that's going to determine the caliber of his decisions. If you had a disciplined mother who had sexual discipline and accountability, you're going to have a sexually disciplined young man that's going to be accountable. If the mother was a deflector, if the mother was avoided accountability, if she was financially unstable and emotionally unstable, those boys are going to have those same characteristics and they're going to play out in some type of way. Now, the child might go to college, become successful, graduate, and got it going on financially because he watched his mother be unstable with money, so he vowed to himself he would never do that. Now, everything is fine until he meets what he thinks is the love of his life, and that woman starts hitting switches in his emotions that he's not aware of. And then that's when you see the breakdown happen to him. And then the flip side of it is if you got the child, which is like myself, 7 kids, 5 baby mamas, sexually undisciplined, and all of this, right? Once I go through the pain of the process of getting my head cracked, child support, kids being taken from me, and all of these things, the flip side of that is that pain causes me to become more financially and emotionally stable as I go along. So one child might have it where they was able to hold it together mentally and be stable and structured, but in the end they fell apart. I might be uh I might be crashing out from the beginning, but through the pain, as long as I made it through it, I ended up on the other side. And it's two opposite sides of the same plane. So depending on the mother and depending on um the impact that she had on those boys and daughters, I don't even want to get into the daughters because that's a whole nother segment. But boys specifically, that's going to determine how he deals with every woman in his life.
I like that. I know you can't hear me, but I'm about to put another one
I
up here.
got you.
You got me now?
You mentioned the multiple women in your life. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of an impact did that have on your sexual discipline and fidelity in a relationship? Um, Grappling with sexual discipline, I would liken it to, not nobody really helping me understand the power of the penis. We've all been alluded to the power of the pussy, but there's very few conversations that you have about the power of your penis outside of you can make a baby with it and don't make no baby. Well, the power of the penis, once you're able to sexually transmute that energy and divert it into something else, that can also make you millions because it's really all energy. And a lot of people, the mistake that I made is I made the biggest mistake because I was seeking relationship and romance instead of seeking connection. Men are seeking connection. Men are going to marry based off of the connection. Men are not really going to marry based off of aesthetic. They're not going to be married based off of how much money she made because we've been psychologically programmed to not count a woman's money. So what women don't understand is when we're pursuing them, what they think we want is sex and a relationship and all this other stuff and the white picket fence and the dream that they were sold. When in all actuality, men are seeking a connection with a woman so that we don't have to talk. We don't have to explain. We don't have to go through all of the conversations and
Amen.
podcast topics and to try to help them understand. Because when there's a true connection, some things just go without saying. She's already in alignment. She knows, she's been groomed and taught. I'm gonna give you an example. The biggest thing and the biggest problem that we have as men I'm going to take you to a silly movie that had a whole bunch of jewelry in it. I want
Come
y'all
on.
to go back and think about the movie Coming to America. And as a young man, a prince, you wake up in the morning and you have beautiful women, bathers that wash you up every morning and brush your teeth. All right. So you wake up, you have breakfast with your mother and your father. They let you know, hey, it's time for you to get old. You're getting older, and now you're about to have a wife. Your wife has been prepared for you from the time that she was born. She's been raised to serve you. Now, pay attention to how James Earl Jones, everybody's dad, was like this. He was like, he let him know. He was like, what is it that you need, my son? Isn't she beautiful? Do you like her? He's like, but dad, I want a woman that likes me for me and all this here, right? And then the mother said, oh, Joffrey, let the boy go with it. He's in love, right? Now, what we know as Americans and American black men, there's no man on the planet Earth that wouldn't want a woman that looked as beautiful as Vanessa Bell Armstrong, standing on one foot, barking like a dog, and her whole purpose life was meant, and she's been taught to do whatever you like. Now, speaking on the grace of men, once a woman subdues her ego, and the opposite of ego in the feminine is pride. Once women let go of their pride and understand that the biggest honor is in serving your husband and your family as a woman, and the older generations of women knew that's what brought honor to the woman. So to serve your man, women have to understand that if you got a dude that was raised by a single mom, he's been serving his mom and his sisters and every woman in his life, his entire life. And none of these women ever served him. They may have spoiled him with things and stuff and pampered him to keep him close so that he would be emotionally committed to them. But they never wanted to see no woman serve him because that's going to threaten their position in his life. So the father, Joffrey Joffer, said, your bathers, was you having sex with your bathers? Because I do. And then he said, isn't she beautiful? You don't like her? So now he goes to America to work at a bootleg fast food restaurant because he's seeking romance and he wants to feel something. And his choice in his woman was based off of what he felt, versus if you and I had that choice every day, all day, we're going to choose logically. No, I'm getting a woman that's going to say whatever you like. Because the biggest problem that we have as men is getting our women to align with our vision for our provision and our protection. They want the vision and provision and protection and don't want to take care of the erection. You understand? Because the erection is what's the connection to the universe that makes and brings life to the planet. But because people don't understand divine science, you understand, and they don't study these things, and they have never been taught to look into the deeper aspects of sexuality and how it's the most powerful sexual force, is the most powerful force we have as human beings on the planet. And when you transmute that energy, that's what makes millionaires like Zuckerberg, Gates, and all these guys. Because nerds just coming through college, they wasn't sexually active, so they had to find something to do with that energy. And so as young boys, if you don't have your father around you that's telling you to respect your penis and helping you understand the power of the penis, your mom is just going to tell you put a rubber on and don't make no babies. Your dad is going to tell you take that energy and transmute that into your dreams, your goals, and your visions so that you can have provision when it's time to pick your woman. But most of us as young black boys, we didn't go through that, whether you had your father in the home or not, because the generations before us was taught to crash out. And one thing that I want to touch on concerning the grace of men is I've heard women say all the time, once upon a time in the early years, women didn't have rights. They wasn't allowed to work. They wasn't allowed to get homes and all of these types of things, right? And that's a historical fact, especially black women. Well, the question becomes then, well, one thing I ask is, well, I wonder if my grandmothers ever loved either one of my grandfathers, especially if we're considering the fact that they really only married them. And one of the things that they had to do was marry a man so that they could have a house, because they wouldn't rent houses to women. So did these women actually really love our grandfathers, or were they basing their relationship off survival? Because if you basing it off survival, then that means they just did the logical thing to get together for them both to be able to survive, and then just ultimately ended up having some kids. So then those grandmothers or grandmothers taught the daughters, go get your education, go to college, and get your money so you ain't never got to depend on no man. Because through the courses and paths of life, women gain their independence. So the generation, my mother's them generation, got to see their freedom and their promised land once women got granted their rights. So now once they have their rights, now they have a choice to say whether they want to put up with a dude or not, because now they got Section 8, WIC, they got all of these things that the government is telling them, you don't have to listen to him. You don't have to be oppressed by no man. We'll help you with your rent. We'll help you do this. And women let you know every day how dispensable we are. Like we're dispensable. Use us up while they got us, and then when they decide they don't like us no more, they throw us away. And then we're not emotionally prepared to even deal with that breakup. And this is where guys crash out, become abusive. Most often they were abused by their mothers. Most of their whoopings and discipline came from their mothers. So once they grown, they feel like they ain't finna take no shit from no woman. And if they don't check that emotionally, they will crash out. And this is where the impact of sexual discipline, and when you're not thinking and using your penis properly, this will have you crashing out.
Man, you've been cooking for a long time, man. Like, just in general, like off the book, because we've had conversations about this in general. But like, hold on, let me go and get your 21 guns. Yeah, man. So I want to get into the part about the impact that your father had in your life, because a lot of people here raised by your mother as if your father was completely out of the picture, because there's a big thing, there's a big difference in a father not being present at all and then not having primary custodial authority. So like your mother was responsible primarily for the psychological imprint that you saw the world in until you had whatever awakening that you had, right? Because every man and woman goes through a phase where their mother's guidance is the authority, is the God in their head, right? And then there comes a moment in time where something shifts, and then it makes you think about like, well, what did my dad experience with my mom or something like that? So I'm going to put this question up here. Here we go. Expound on the psychological impact of your father on your life in comparison to being raised by your mother.
Here we go. Expound on the psychological impact of your father on your life in comparison to being raised by your mother. One thing about my father, man, is, again, the trickle down from being raised with 10 children in the home. My grandmother never worked. My father's dynamic, there was a pecking order issue. So it boiled down to everybody seeking the mother's attention. And like your post earlier, we living in a matriarchal system. You ain't never heard nobody say yo daddy on the playground and it was fighting words. Everybody knows in the Black community, universally, if you talk about somebody's mama, you're going to get suspended from school. But they'll teach us every day that we living in a patriarchal society. Yeah, that might be true on the macrocosm, but when it came to the Black community, Big Mama always ran everything. And Grandpa did whatever Grandma wanted. Dudes went home and brought the paycheck home back in them days. You understand? It was a whole different dynamic back then. You understand? So the matriarchy emasculated the patriarchy. So what my father would do when I would go to Dallas, and next time I'm down there, I'm coming to see you, when I'm in Texas. So Dad tried to give us the masculine perspective. Dad he gave us the opportunity to speak what we wanted to say. He didn't react emotionally to it. He attempted to check us and discipline us when we were thinking wayward. One of the things my dad would say is, if you go out in this world with bitch ways, you bound to get fucked. Is something my dad would always say. And something else he would tell us, and you're young trying to get this information over a 3-month span of time over the summer. He would say, son, your dick is the golden rod. Now, as I got older, I was able to piece together what he was basically saying. Like, understand, like, the power of your penis. And if you operate from a woman's perspective and you go out in this world with woman's ways, you're going to get fucked over. And those were the biggest things that I took away from my father's tutelage. Now, understand, my father had his issues. You understand, it was a lot of things underlining going on with him that, as a young boy, discredited my father's wisdom. Just like, mothers that they'll say, I'll never say nothing bad about your dad and this and that. And a lot of women wave that flag. But as a young boy, I would encourage mothers to ask their children, that especially their sons, ask your sons how they really feel about you, and watch how they struggle with telling you the truth about you, because the grace of men does not allow them to air you out. They're going to cover your infidelities. They'll fight with anybody that's going to talk about their mom, even when their mother is wrong. And when you going out in this world thinking like that, subconsciously, you might love your mama like that, and your mama might love you like that. But you'll meet a woman in your life that's not going to love you like your mom, but you'll be ready to crash out over her and end up in the penitentiary over somebody that never loved you. So these was the lessons that my father was trying to convey to us. And basically, knowledge of self, do for self. Self-preservation is the first law of nature. Don't get caught up out here trying to put your cape on and save every situation, because a lot of men, their sensitivity to single moms, they say, oh, well, single moms are easy targets. Well, I want to dispel that myth. It's not that men look at women with children as easy targets or none of that. When a man meets a woman, if I meet her out and about, I met her first. I didn't see her children. Now, when you are a young boy that grew up with a struggling single mom, automatically, right? Like we got our homeboy Eugene that's going through right now. You will have an ill attachment to the children, and you will have a soft spot for them, and you will never want them to struggle like you had to struggle. So you don't want to see the mother struggle with the child, and you don't want to see the child struggling. So now they make it simp behavior when really it's a trauma response. So a lot of dudes develop these relationships with these children because they don't want to see the children suffer, but they call that simping. They call that stepdaddyism. And you always going to lose with that, because those kids never form a real bond with you. You form a real bond with the kids, and their loyalty is always going to be with their father, even if he was in jail, even if he ain't never showed up, even if he stood you up when he said he was coming to get you and never came, and then the stepdaddy had to drop you off and fill in the gaps and all of that. All the dad has to do at any given day is get his shit together, right? And most kids are going to have a loyalty to their dad, unless the dynamic is the opposite, where you end up with the Shaquille O'Neal type of dude, where Shaq was like, fuck his dad. You see what I'm saying? Well, most kids, and most often this is with the girls are the ones that's reaching out for the relationship with the dad because they're female. You understand? But the boys is always going to be loyal to the mother. You see what I'm saying? So, and they'll tell you to reject your father's wisdom. But I tell all my religious folks, anytime you saying a mantra or a prayer where it says, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, that's telling me, well, subconsciously you telling the world, like, yeah, that father that's in front of you that's going to work, paying the bills and making sure you cool, you ain't got to listen to him or respect him. Our father is in heaven. So that's the only father that you got to reverence and pay attention to. And most women indoctrinate their kids into the church, so they're automatically subconsciously taught, fuck your dad on earth. We pray to the Father, and our Father in heaven provides all of our needs.
I can see that, especially if the mindset of the woman is coming from a negative mindset and is not being helpful and doesn't care about nurturing the right way, and is coming through a negative situation. If the mother is already operating emotionally undisciplined and has resentment for the father, she can definitely manipulate whatever information she wants to, Now, the beauty of the conversation in talking about the grace of men, and then you mentioned in the Lord's Prayer about our Father in heaven, is that ultimately you return to the source for the answer, and it's in the image of a man. It's not in the image of a woman. Like like when you are in a worst case scenario, you could cry subconsciously for your mother, like you scrape your knee, or you need your mother's nurturing care, concern, or whatever. There's some situations that a child absolutely just wants their mother, for comfort sakes. But when you want to solve a problem, you don't pray to your mom. You sit back, and even if you don't have a dad present in your life or a male figure present in your life, you still say, "Our Father in heaven," or whatever it is, whatever condition that you had, that the solution goes through a man's it comes through a filter that a man understands. And no matter how you do it, like it's like the greatest philosophers are men, the greatest engineers and mathematicians are men. The infrastructure is built by men. Everything that we objectively see in the world every day that we use, that we don't even think about. You like the fact that we're even on the internet right now having this conversation, you know what I'm saying? I'm in Texas and you're in Ohio, like, and it went from a Facebook post to this. This is another, example of the grace of men, because like you reach a certain point in your life where you've done a lot of different things. You made money, you lost money, you got it back. You had your freedom compromised. You had your feelings played with. You had your emotions tried. You probably should have killed some people. You know what I'm saying? That you gave grace then too. And you still pull up on them. You know where they live. You know where they see. You see them all the time. Even if they don't see you, and you still got that in you. And by grace, you don't. So ultimately, the alignment that you have to have as a man, it has to be with the logic that a reasonable man that you would respect would tell you, because you want somebody to talk you down off the ledge, because when you're ready to go that distance, it's already done, because it's up here already. The last thing you need to do is get in the car and travel to wherever the situation needs to take place at. You already got a plan that goes after that too. Especially if you sober, let you be sober and then still thinking the same thing. And when you don't need anything to trigger you, because it's on you, it's in you, because it's already psychologically imprinted up there. So if you don't have that balance, with that one moment of emotional discipline, just to even just say, show me a sign, you're not gonna get that sign from your mom. Because you're looking for confirmation, and you looking for a reason to not do it, because you've already made up that you're gonna do it. So like that psychological imprint from your father, depending on how he lived his life, is going to be the final confirmation. And even if he wasn't able to show up in every area that you wanted him to show up in, if you still had connection with him to be able to respect what he's done for himself, like you said, it's going to always bring them people back to you, because everybody ain't perfect. They're going to figure out how hard the world actually is, and that your dad was Superman. And when you figure that part out, that's when you say, man, I can relate to you not crashing out. I admire you for not crashing out. It don't matter how much money you made or didn't make. You maintained your character and your integrity, because that's what's really lacking in the world. You know how many dummies you got to walk past before you actually talk to somebody with some sense that you could actually respect? That's a very short list. You travel a lot in the world, and you walk past so many stupid people, so many, and give them grace every day, because you could fry so many people with what they think, and you say, nah, it's not worth my time. They need to heal. you figure out something that says, you know what, they're fighting something that I'm not responsible for starting. So the grace of men is like that, every day. Because like, if we were able to, like you mentioned, if we were able to talk about the women in our lives the way based on their behavior. Not what they represent, but based on their behavior. Many of them would be jumping off of bridges. Because most of them are bad parents. Most of them, if their kids went to therapy, they lose custody. And most of them are not even good people to the other women in their lives. But even still, men get in the room to work their issues out, become adults on their own, because they can't be told what to do, then they just got to function. They got to figure it out on their own. And in most cases, the only time that they're going to learn is when their children teach it to them. So it may take them 40, 50 years, maybe 60, before they start getting the real report card on their behavior. Because if they're not listening to men who get them grace by simply not trying to superimpose themselves in their lives based on their behavior and let them do whatever they want to do, then the only people that can like really bring their behavior back to tally is going to be their children. I'm gonna unmute you. Go ahead and unmute.
Man, that's heavyweight jewelry, dog. And it's for several reasons. Like I've seen this happen in my life where they got their report card. My father got his report card at the end. You understand? Where I had to take care of him, but this is the space where I was able to say, like, hey man, this is how the things you did, this is the end result of that. And he saw it with his own life. So it was really nothing that I had to say. When you die and you didn't have the connection with your sons that you were supposed to, it's going to show. When you get older and you didn't establish a proper connection with your children, no matter how they performing for you as a mother, because they want your affirmation, they want your love, and they want your affection. Everybody wants mama's love. So a lot of that is based off performance. So the children are performing. Okay, mom, look, ta-da, you gonna love me now? Then they do something else. Ta-da, you come home with your report card. See, mom, see, mom, see, mom. So it's all based off of performance. And when you're dealing with performative love, you don't see what's real. So this is the smokescreen and the illusion that makes a lot of single black mothers think that they're doing a great job. But in reality, their father can't tell you the truth, because when he tries to give you wisdom, you say he ain't right. A lot of their family members, aunts, they got sisters, brothers, can't nobody tell them nothing. They think they right, or they'll coddle them and justify the behavior. But when the child starts crashing out, the first thing everybody yells is because his dad wasn't in his life, or his dad, or the lack of the dad, right? So once you got this dynamic in place, like even in this conversation that we having right now, we are not interrupting each other in the conversation at all. I'm able to complete my whole everything I want to say. You was able to complete everything you wanted to say. We are not butting in on each other. We're not interrupting each other. We're not piggybacking on each other. You're able to complete your entire thought. I'm not taking a little segment of what you're saying and getting an emotional reaction and spinning the conversation in a whole nother direction where we on a whole nother topic. So we're able to psychologically stay on task. You're able to completely express everything that's on your mind, because men paint pictures with words. Women just talk shit. Okay. And the most often, once we're able to paint the full picture and they get it through the brush strokes, right? Now you see the whole picture. But if you're basing your opinion off of a couple things that I said that stung you and it pricked your accountability, you're going to get stuck right there at that point of contention. And most often that's going to be the point of contention for the rest of the relationship. And you never get to the solution, which we were created as masculine men to be able to provide. So the provision and the protection that they want from us, they self-sabotage themselves to where we ain't even in position to be able to give it to them. The first place for us to be able to give it to you is going to be in the home, being there, protecting and providing. And the other place we going to give you is the other part of the emotional balance, when I lay you down in the bedroom and bend you over and pull your hair. All of these things balance out the emotional psyche of a woman. And if you don't have these things in balance and you going without, the women are sexually frustrated, angry at the kids, snapping because they ain't got no dude. Now they got roses and they playing with themselves. So now their emotional comfort and their companionship is now defaulted to their kids. So then they have this emotional attachment to their kids, where when their kids ain't around, they don't even know what to do with themselves. Then when a man come around, the man is always going to be second fiddle and play second hand to the kids, because the kids always going to come first. And the Bible tells you, for all of my people that read the Bible, there's a story in the Bible about the widow and her son. It was a famine in the land, right? And the prophet came to the house. She had a little bit of meal in the barrel and a little bit of oil in the cruse. And the prophet told her, what's the matter? She's like, well, I'm going to make these cakes, and after we eat these cakes, me and my son going to die. The prophet...
We lost you for a second. I'm going to bring you back. I'm gonna stay tuned. We want to make sure we get this story.
First, that meal never went empty and the oil never went dry, and they was able to sustain. But that was the provision of the man.
Issa, can you hear me? Yo, bro, can you hear me? Go out and come back in. Go out and come back in and see if you can. Issa, can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Yo, bro, can you hear me? Go out and come back in. Go out and come back in and see if you can. It's a real bad delay. So the I can't wait to hear what story he's gonna say. But like, for the people that's in the comments, I want you to think about this question right here. Women turn their children into pick-me's and simps based on performative love. That's kind of what Issa was talking about, with the performative love part that he was discussing. I believe that behavior is true, that it turns children into pick-me's and simps based on performative love, because the daughters that those types of mothers raise are performing for their mother's approval, and the sons that those type of women raise perform for their mother's approval as well. How that translates into their regular everyday life in dealing with the opposite sex is that the girls that can't get their mother's love try to make men perform for her love, attention, affection, and nurturing, just like her mom made her do. And just like and then it gets compounded if she sees her father try to perform for her mother's validation. Whether he's married or not is a different level to it as well. Then if they're not married and she sees her dad get respected by a different woman, then that's a different layer of confusion and contention potentially. And those same things also matter for a son for a different set of reasons too, because that same scenario that creates this this pick-me mentality in women, because women have a different definition of what a pick-me is. They think they're just performing for male validation. Well, the truth is the underlying behavior is that they're performing for their mother's validation that they never got as a kid. Period. Because if they got their mother's validation, they would trust what she says. But instead, they go out and do the opposite because their mom never got the validation that she said she qualified for. So they never seen a solid example where the mother actually got what they wanted and was happy with it. On the other side of that, the son sees the same behavior and he performs for his mother's validation, doesn't get it till he revolts. And then he goes out and he pursues the vanity of women and not the character, because he's been performing based on the characteristic requirements that his mother's been giving him. And then when he can't get that type of validation met, even though he probably did everything she told him to do or that she would appreciate, and it still wasn't enough to satisfy her requirement, he goes out, and that's the only psychological imprint that he has with the opposite sex. So he pursues the most shallow women and believes that making kids with them is going to hold them in place like a placeholder and ruin them potentially for the next guy. And he has some level of control over her just like his mom has control over him psychologically. And that in turn makes her second fiddle to his mother because he's still trying to please her. And in reality, it's just another side relationship. Like until you could cuss your mama out or put her in her place and put the right boundary up, your relationships are going to suffer as a man. And what's crazy is that most men by the age of 13, when they're still boys, they have no working authority over how strong they actually are because they've been made to work for their mother's approval instead of work on themselves. And then the women that have sons, they don't realize that they're just setting their boys up to get manipulated by women who will play on a man's ego because our requirement list is so short and it's so shallow in general, but our lists will be short, but the women will create a list for their sons to live up to for a woman that was never taught what her value is either. So these people keep reproducing with each other, from this standpoint. That is the common cycle because you can't replicate something that you've never been raised by. So when we talk about the grace of men and how it got to this point, this is what women wanted. Regardless of what they think they deserve, they'll tell you what they deserve. But the work that it takes to earn it is completely a different conversation than what they think they deserve. That's what men need to understand. Pay attention to what they react to, not what they talk about, not what they care about. Pay attention to what they react to and what they're willing to do to get it. If they're willing to go without you to go get it, then they know that it's a basic requirement. But when it gets down into character and trying to establish real connection that men absolutely want with a woman, then less likely to do that because it requires them to hold their mother accountable, and their mother don't want to have that conversation with them to tell them what they did. The mother don't want to have a conversation about how they was a bad parent. The mother don't want to talk about her mistakes to the son or the daughter. And that has a completely different impact on both. So with that being said, I greatly appreciate Issa jumping up here, giving us his take and talking about the grace of men and how, even though we want better communication and connection, we also understand what our responsibility is to establish that. The experience that some men have is going to shape this conversation a lot more. So hopefully you guys are tuned in and you want to have a say-so in it. And I particularly want to talk to a lot of men that's been raised by women at this point, because men raised by men, we got it. Two-parent home situation, we got it. It's some things I can't relate to. And I'm not going to pretend that I can relate to everything because I don't want to come off as insulting. I want to be as compassionate to other people's experiences as possible, because women need to hear what they do to men from the time that they're boys. They need to hear it, not us, because there's enough legal infrastructure to sort us out. And the data and statistics are there and the outcomes are there. But more men need to come tell their story, and it's the platform to do it. Welcome to Beyond the Algorithm, where life actually happens. And I thank you for joining this discussion here on the Accountable Masculinity channel. Thank you. All right, folks. Appreciate you sticking with me to the end. This has been another episode of Beyond the Algorithm. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Go get the book. And most importantly, I will see you beyond the algorithm. That's when life actually happens.